Book a seat at the bar to join us for another episode of McAnally's Pubcast, a podcast exploring the fun and fantastical mind of Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files series. Hosts Tansenn, Jess, and Maggie bring you another round of literary analysis on this immense, immersive, and colorful environment inhabited by Harry Dresden, the world's only licensed private investigator and professional wizard. Join an active and engaged community of new and die-hard dedicated fans focused on the fabulous themes, theories, characters, context, lore, and more. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 9.13, Summer's Influence, where we are covering the novel Summer Night. My name is Tansenn, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
India.
Chapter 16. Dresden speaks with Meryl and Fix. Meryl hires Dresden to find her friend Lily. When Harry arrives at his car, he finds a very injured Elaine.
I'm trying to, listen to the episodes and be happy, and Tansenn's in there, making me sound like a robot, because it's like, Romeo. And then, Romeo. Wherefore art Romeo.
Come on, that was really funny to hear, though, wasn't it?
I'm, listening, I'm like, all right, Tansenn, understood. So anyways.
I laughed when I did that, because it turned out so freaking well.
I don't think... Yes. It's not one of the aired ones yet.
No,
I was going to say, I've been listening to them. I haven't. Okay, we haven't got to that one yet.
It's coming,
but spoiler alert, everyone.
They will have already heard it by the time they hear this one.
Well, fair enough. Yes,
yeah, that'll
that's
be like
true.
4 weeks.
True.
4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that's they'll have heard it by this point. But
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
All right, Tansenn.
Well, here we'll take the spotlight off of your fuck ups a little bit, and fun little tidbit: when the original CDs came out for Summer Night, and I had ordered my copy, and you're listening, and it was funny. It was when Buzzy Media was still doing these ones, and they sent an email or something out to everybody that had ordered, and they're like, okay, we apologize. There's kind of a fuck up that made it through on the thing. So anybody that wants, if you want to send yours back, we'll send you. I was like, no way, man. This is collector's copy. I'm keeping the fucked up one. So at the start of this, where he's being held up by your neck hurts, and then just when he starts to talk or whatever, so it says at the end of the last chapter, right, she comes up behind him and grabs the back of his neck. And so he's sitting there, and he's like, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something, and he's like, oh, fuck, she's holding him by the back of the neck. Okay, hang on. And then he, rereads that part, it was because he forgot, I was thinking he was, being jumped from the front or whatever, and he's like, oh, no, fuck, she's holding him from, the back of the neck. Okay, but yeah, I think it was just because, he swore and, did it, and Buzzy's like, oh my god, we're so sorry, I'm like, I'm keeping this copy dead straight, man.
That's much better.
But still, Buzzy Media just forgot to edit that?
Yeah, it was it just got missed somehow in it, that somehow that part didn't get removed, and,
Did they actually say what the problem was, or you actually had to just have your ears on totally to wait until to find out what the mistake was? Listening intently, going, where is it?
We hear there's been a problem with chapter 16.
I think it might have been something like that. I think they might have said, on disc 4 or this chapter or something like that, because...
The anticipation would have killed me.
Yeah, I literally 20 years ago, I don't remember
Oh, great, now I have to pay attention to this book.
So, that was a problem anyways, but... Yeah, I don't know, and I probably would not find the post or anything from them. But yeah, no, I feel like they maybe had said something like that. I feel like it was and maybe that was it. Maybe you didn't even need to send back the whole thing. They're just there's an error on disc 4. Send us disc 4 and we'll send you a replacement,
I'll find it.
But yeah, it's not that little bit.
Find it and post it.
Really funny.
Thank you for that tidbit.
But yeah, it was kind of fun. But I was instantly when I see this thing, I was I'm keeping mine. Whatever it is, whenever it comes up, I'm I'm keeping mine.
Now Mom has...
A collector's edition.
Rare copy of James Marsters swearing. That definitely doesn't exist anywhere else.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Meryl comes up and grabs him and is get off of him. And so, yeah, so kudos. I mean, this is funny. This goes back a little bit to where we were talking before about the werewolf senses in and out of human and werewolf form. Because we're when he drops Billy off after the Reign of Toads, we're like, oh, Georgia's like nostrils flared and she looked up and saw them coming in, right? So we're like, but then before, when Billy, when Dresden goes to set up the circle to bring in Toot and with the pizza, Billy's like, well, I could go off and try and pick up their scent or whatever, right? And he comes back and he's like, yeah, it was a little bit different, but I could probably recognize it again in my other form or whatever, right? So you're like, okay, you need to be more wolfy to really, fare. And then here, like I say, I mean, they're going along and Billy just suddenly reacts out of nowhere, right? So I'm like, maybe but I mean, again, it's a dark alley. Dresden is a little preoccupied, but again, people are usually coming at him, and especially lately, he's had these like constant assaults from, you'd think he'd be pretty sort of as humanly aware of what's going on, right? And Billy seems to pick up before them that somebody's lurking in the shadows or whatever, right? So I'm like, so they do have keener skills as humans, but it's like, like, did you hear? Did you see? Did you smell? Like, what was it that tipped Billy off in this instance?
Or is he just really astute?
Or is he just really astute and Dresden was just all caught up with everything else that's going on and whatever that he wasn't? But yeah, so I'm like, I'm still leaves me a little bit like...
It's ambiguous.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to know how much wolfy powers they have when they're not wolfy.
I mean, like, I'll just put it all on D&D rules again. Where it's like, you kind of always have...
Passive perception?
You always have your, like, powers of whatever that may be. But sometimes you just roll bad. And so it's like, no matter what, when you get higher and higher level, your rolls are just always going to be better and better. Even if you roll bad, it's like you just got so much to add on to it.
Yeah.
But when you're lower level, you're still really dependent on the dice. So it's like, sometimes you roll good and sometimes you roll bad. And he's still really low level. So it's like, sometimes the wolfy powers work and sometimes they don't. And the rest of the time...
I'll buy that. I like that.
I know, yeah, I now envision as he's writing and trying to set up a scenario, because we already discussed how he sort of creates his characters based that way, sort of gives them a character sheet and stuff. And I'm like, he's now sitting there like,
I know a lot of authors do that.
Billy's not going to smell them in this case. Fuck, what is Dresden going to do? I got to find some other way for Dresden to figure this out, because Billy rolled too low. And
I really feel like Dresden does do that, because sometimes it's like he gets so amazing in a fight, and sometimes he does so poorly that I'm really like, that was just like a toss of the dice. Like,
yeah, really.
It's like really like, and I know that in this new age D&D world, it's such a new thing. I know a lot of authors do like, they claim to that. They're like, oh my god, this is what this character rolled in this instance. I didn't know how I was gonna fix it. Blah blah blah. Like, a lot of like younger people are doing that now. They're just like, I don't know. This is what the dice did.
You know what? I guess in some ways that's fair, right? And it gives you a little bit of a step, right? Because remember we were taking a while ago, I was like, part of the reasons why
Elaine sucks.
What I would suck as an author at this moment without any experience, skill, or training is because exactly, I would want all my characters to be super badass and wonderful. I'd never want to give anybody any faults, right? Dresden would never lose a fight. He's awesome, right? But I mean, I guess that's a good way of doing it. That if you sort of let yourself, then
roll dice.
Yeah,
no, I guess they do suck.
He's gonna die in this one. Damn it!
Forces you to come up with a new solution too. And
different.
The easy solution is like, whoa, I guess he can't do that power. All right, how else does he get out of this?
Exactly right. Where you bring in other characters or situations or right? What gear he's got on? Oh, look, he magically has his superpower Hercules ring today. Oops, no, he left it at home. So. I'm not going to get that out of my head now. I'm just going to picture Butcher as he sits there writing with his, like, mega dice tray and don't fuck me, Gil, come on.
What you guys are missing is every single time Maggie does a roll the dice motion,
she's performing a hand job in her seat.
Yeah. I'm trying very hard to be professional and not make fun of this, but it was just too much. The third time was too much.
That's okay. This is also where the Moby Dick Seaman episode just aired, so you already... I work with children!
Yeah, I love that people call it, too.
So here we are introduced to, again, yes, it's this couple from the picture, from the funeral home, and Fix squeaks, so he immediately identifies him. And then Meryl introduces herself. And it's such a great exchange, she's like, I'm sorry, I just wanted to apologize for, like, hitting you and throwing you in the dumpster. And he's like, are you sure you got the right guy? He's like, nobody ever apologizes to me.
Yeah, it's really not an expected moment to have the The people that you sort of suspect right now.
Right.
Apologize. Oh.
Yeah, it's like they just suddenly wailed on you and ran away. Oh my god, the wizard's here, the wizard's here. Well, he's supposed to be an okay guy. I don't know, run away, the wizard's here. And,
and only a few hours later is now holding you up by the back of your neck.
And then,
sorry.
And then that's the other thing. And she's like, no, I was scared. I acted without thinking. And he's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure lurking in a dark alley to mug me with your apology isn't the normal way to go. But, I never read that Mars Venus book, so, but it's again where he's like, okay, so you do want to apologize, but normally, yeah. And she's like, okay, not what we meant either. We were just trying to, wait around, but it's like, it's not my fault y'all freaked out and pounced on Fix, and then I had to rescue him, and then, but yeah, it's just, such a great, she's like, I want to apologize for, throwing you in the dumpster, and holding you up and threatening to break your neck.
Well, she even says, I was going to wait by the car for you. But it's the alley is not waiting by the car. If someone was leaning against my car, it'd be a lot less threatening than someone, lurking in an alleyway, right?
Well, this is, she says we didn't know how to find you, so we were waiting around your car, yes. So I'm like, I guess maybe again, other shit's going on with rules, murder. Maybe they didn't want to just stand in the spotlight his car, or was afraid he'd zap them from a distance so they were kind of waiting a little bit out of the way. What are you dying about?
I have a labeled office in downtown. I'm in the phone book. I'm in the newspaper every other week. But sure, wait for me in an alley.
This is fair.
Halflings just don't think like that, I guess.
I didn't know how else to
Changelings,
find
yeah.
you, so yeah, get it, yeah. There's still enough in the mortal world, obviously, that's where they've grown up, because none of them are sure they want to choose that side, but is this part of that, when you're, late teens, early 20s, adulting, and you still are, calling your mom for everything, and being and you're like, it's okay, just call the dentist, and I can't call the dentist, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to, that's fine, just tell them you don't know what to ask, they don't care, people do this all the time, just call them and be like, hey, my mouth hurts, I don't know what and they'll tell you, okay, well, you need this, health insurance, and you need this, ID, and you need whatever, right? I was
like, from an actual moment.
Last week?
No.
Yeah. No.
I handled my own shit.
Actually, I was just talking about that. I was talking to someone yesterday. She was cleaning out a purse and transferring over to another. So she was going through 6 wallets and things and pulling out, these super multi-pocket slotted things. And every time she'd find a new compartment, there was more cards and stuff like this or whatever. And she's like, I still have my grandkids and my great-grandkids healthcare and whatever, because they always lose it and can never find it. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I still have. I was like, my one kid usually is kind of okay. She has hers. The other one was forever losing and forgetting. So I was like, yeah, I still have her birth certificate and stuff. And she'll phone me up and be like, Mom, what's my healthcare? I have an appointment in 2 minutes and I'm on the bus and I don't know where. Yeah, it's just a thing. But
for the record, I have been able to keep my healthcare now for 2 or 3 years. So
only because you can program it in your phone or whatever. You finally remember to
There's
take a
an app
picture
for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Stupid pandemic made me have to read it out every 2
Every
days.
30 seconds, yeah. So yeah, is this one of those things where Meryl and Fix and them are just young enough that, yeah, like you say, it doesn't occur
Look up
to
a
them
phone
to-
book.
I know, what is that? It was they don't know,
Early 2000s. They had to have still known what a phone book was and how to use one.
Or they just, but just,
They're also comically disorganized and got their heads running around like chickens with their heads off.
and
Like,
maybe-
oh my god, the wizard! Whee!
Right, and I mean, in all fairness, we've all done shit like that fairly, the other day where you're like, oh my god, I can't do this, how am I gonna, I can't think of a good example now that I want one, of course, but, but it's oh my god, the power's out, how am I gonna, microwave a cup of hot chocolate, and it's I don't know, use your gas stove. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's a thing. Right? Things like that, right? Where you always have those, stupid moments where you just completely do not think of, the obvious solution. But, yeah, I do love that way. She's like, I didn't know how... Because they've obviously heard of him before, too. Because they know his reputation and some things about him or whatever, right? So I'm like, again, is that simply from it's all word of mouth?
Right.
But, yeah, good point. That's
Just
funny.
saying, he's actually,
Pretty easy to find.
pretty easy to find. That's one of his worst traits, actually. It's just how easy he
Hello,
makes himself.
I'm right here. Harry
to
Dresden.
find.
I'd have a big neon sign if I wouldn't blow it up.
He spends a lot of money on his marketing, so...
So he feels this headache coming back that has been coming on and off throughout his talks with Billy and his talks with Maeve and his talks with So she offers some help because he's like, I got things to do, thanks for apologizing, catch you later. And she's like, oh no, wait, he's like, I don't really have time to wait. And she's like, well, I might be able to help you with the whole Ron thing because like we were buds. So he's like, okay. And then she doesn't really give him any information here. So, okay, fine.
We get a little bit of background information. We find out that that Meryl, Fix, and Ace and Lily are all changelings, so they're half mortal, half fae.
Yeah, and Billy's like, "Oh, cool. What's that?" Or no, he's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's the mortal." He's like, "Oh, what does that mean?" I'm like, I like Billy has some good lines in this, like where he's just coming up with like great stuff. Like, "Oh, you're looking for suspects? Was that before or after they threw you in the dumpster?"
It's a really nice way to advance the plot line and this, like the lore,
it super
without
is.
being like knock you over the head with it.
It super is, and even like in a minute here when she's going on about whatever else and saying they were getting picked on in the winter court, and he's like, "Well, didn't your dad do anything?" And she's like, "Yeah, my dad figures he's done enough just because he like didn't," or he's like, "Just because he didn't like devour my mom immediately after like raping her, kind of a thing." So he's like, "Oh, sorry," like thanks for bringing that up, but it's just like, it's like, again, I love the way like Marshall reads it and stuff like that too, and it's just like, oh shit, my bad, okay, sorry.
There's not much to say about that, really.
Same, yeah.
But but instead of being all like super awkward or like super apologetic or you know what I mean, I just do like the way he's just like, oh, okay.
There's like a time when we kind of lose out on Billy a lot, there's just so many other characters and other things going on that
he
the
goes
werewolf
off and has like a life and shit.
He goes off and has a life and stuff like that, right? And then he comes back in later books, right? We just had the Law and Heroic Hearts or whatever like that. It had Billy in them, and it's like, oh, hi Billy, I'm happy to have you back again as a seemingly full-time character somewhat,
Yeah.
But it is nice that, in the first RPG book, it's put together by Billy,
Oh,
right?
it makes so much sense.
Picking Harry's brain or whatever like that, right? So you get a lot of, like, in the margins notes from, like, Billy and Harry and Bob arguing about, like, it's like, well, this doesn't even make sense. And Harry's like, that's just how it is. And he's like, but that doesn't make any sense. And Harry's just like, I don't make the rules, man. This is what Bob said. And he's just like, and they're just kind of like, it's like, the same sort of thing where Billy's just got his quips written in the margins. Like, why does it work like that? And Harry's like, stop asking questions, okay? Like,
Yeah, right. That's I guess that's a couple chapters away. We'll get there yet. But yeah, same thing. Billy has that very argument later. That just doesn't make any sense.
Meryl suspects the Winter Knight has taken Lily after finding their house had been broken into.
Yeah. Which is a detail that I do forget sometimes. That, she didn't just go missing somewhere else or some other place, that she does say that, it looks like someone broke into the apartment and that. And I was like, ooh, they snatched her right from... Yes, right. But yeah, Lily does it, which I can relate to a lot of Lily here, because she's like, she doesn't really look after herself, or, she's like, she gets kind of nervous. She doesn't really know what to do. She like does not know how to adult, and she gets uncomfortable going out of the house for long periods. And I'm like, you know what? I'm with you, Lily. I would just rather stay home, not have to deal with the world. I'm like, if someone else wants to take care of that for me, sure, that would be swell. Thanks. As I mock my children for not wanting to make their own dentist appointments.
I think a lot of people and in
Right.
2022 now
identify
with this.
That as well. That
to leave the house now? No.
That as well. But yeah, but he's like, and she's got a good quip here too, right? He's like, well, did you call the cops? And she's like, oh yeah, I just told them like, I'm gonna have to find it.
I told them that a mortal champion of the Fae came and spirited away a half-mortal, half-Nixie professional nude model to the fairyland. They were all over it.
Yeah. He's like, I did have to admire the well-placed sarcasm. But exactly. But he's like, okay, it doesn't take a supernatural badass to like, or sorry, stud buff is what he says, but to make something bad happen to, a cute girl in this town kind of a thing. Like, it totally could have been just random old
Any
whatever.
rando bad guy.
Yeah. And so she does she's like, okay, well, yes, but either way, I need help finding her, and I don't really want to go to the cops in case it is something extra and blah, 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 right? And really puts Dresden on the spot because, of course, she's like, I need your help. He's like, oh, of course you do. She's like, it's really important. Of course it is, And again, as he has said time and time again from almost page 1, he's got that knee-jerk reaction to help women in particular, the damsel in distress, the this and that, right?
I think in this case it was more the financial aspect that got him.
Well,
Not so much the chivalry in this case.
It gets to that point eventually, but even still, he's weak already, but he's being a little bit like...
Well, but that's what I mean, because he's really trying to blow her off, but he is feeling bad about it, you know, like, that's the thing, because, you know, he's like, it does...
Goes against his ethics.
Yeah, it's like that little heartstring tug, whatever, that he is inclined to want to help. He doesn't want to leave some girl out there to a regular baddie or a supernatural baddie.
We just need to do the law already, okay? I just want to talk about the law. There's like...
Only 6 more years, Jess. We'll get there.
I know, so it's not a big spoiler, so I'm going to say it now because we're so far away. There's a moment in the law when a girl comes up to him and he's like, blah, 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 why me? What do you want my help for? Blah, blah, blah. Neither of you have read it yet?
Yes.
And
yes.
Oh, you did get it to it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and basically the girl is just like, people come to you when they need a miracle. Okay, that's what they say on the streets. Like, if you need a miracle, you go to Harry Dresden.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, because it's true. It's like book after book after book is pretty much like, I'm out of all options.
Yeah.
You're the last guy on earth who can help me.
You were saying before, it's like only desperate people go to.
Yeah, that makes sense for in context of,
Book after book after book.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. I've literally run through every other option. I've got nothing but bad guys in front of me.
Or if no one's going to believe me.
If I'm getting any help at all, it's going to be you. And obviously, as we know as the readers and as the main character of the book series, he's going to always say yes and step up and help them, right?
Yeah.
But it is. It's like, you know, we make fun of Jim Butcher all the time for giving his characters like 84 problems to solve by the end of the book. But the problem is that Harry's always got his own stuff going on. And then he goes and solves everyone else's stuff, too.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that they're always linked, but...
Generally. But yes, exactly. So yeah, I think that's, exactly, is that he really, really wants to put her off. And she does finally draw him in and convince him with the money, which he feels shitty about, too. Because he's like, well, I can't spend it if I'm dead. But he's like, at the same time, if I survive all this, it is going to be necessary. I am going to lose my office. I am going to lose my apartment. I have to pay for all those phone book ads. Like, I need some money.
Which makes that whole exchange that's happening right now when it's like, you know, you've got Billy watching this thing right now on the sidelines, seeing this woman be like, you're the only person who can help me. My friend's in a lot of trouble. She's been, like, probably kidnapped by fairies. And Harry's still like, nope, can't do it.
5 minutes ago, we were terrified of you. Now we're, like, begging for help, you know?
And Harry's still being like, nope, can't help you. Sorry, I've got too much other shit on my plate, right? And it's like, what could Billy possibly be thinking right now? And then you get her being like, I'll pay you double, I'll pay you triple, and I'll put $1,000 bonus on you right now, or whatever like that. And then Harry's finally like, yes, and it's like, what is Billy thinking for all of this? So much nicer when you go to the law and you see that moment when Harry starts being a nice guy to people just for the hell of it, and you've got Billy on the sidelines being like, good job, Harry. It's just, Billy really goes from being this like 20-year-old whoever to like a 35-year-old like adult, and you're just like,
I know.
Crazy.
Like a nice, normal, well-adjusted
He grows up in
male.
the supernatural world and mostly comes out fine, and I'm really proud of him for that.
I know, and most of the guys that have grown up in a non-supernatural world are just not always as nice.
Billy's a good guy
And
the whole time.
Billy's just a good guy,
Billy.
and it's so nice to see.
You really got to listen to the law.
Yes.
I will get there.
Yeah.
It's on my queue.
But in his defense for there, I would say definitely I can see where you're coming from. At the same time, Billy is also the one that dragged Dresden out and said, you're about to lose everything. I booked you an appointment, you need a job, and the job he booked him does not pay anything. So I think he might understand a little bit, and since he has kind of been tagging along with some of this, you know, I'm like, it might be a little bit fair that Billy does kind of get what's going on.
Billy will forgive
here.
him.
Yeah, he's like, he just friggin' went down and had like an interview with Maeve, and like literally Billy comes out going anybody else would still be shaking in their boots, and you're giving her like the Russian judge, like you're just like, whatever, I don't have time for your bullshit. He's like, Dairy Queen, right? So he might be kind of like, yeah, okay.
The fact that Billy really did grow up as respectful and nice as he did when he had that influence the whole time. He's like, I don't have to be afraid of fairies. My friend Harry isn't.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. He had a good, solid upbringing. That's their childhood. That Billy did.
Oh, we got to meet Billy's parents. They must be amazing.
But yeah, so yes, kind of what I meant before is we don't really get a lot of any more information on Ronald Rule, which is kind of what obvious, but we do get a lot more.
They call him William the whole time in the law, and I was like, who the fuck is William? I'm like, oh my god, Billy!
Okay, stop talking about the law.
I just,
I know, I get it, but you're gonna just keep. We gotta get back on track to Summer Night. So yes, we get more insight about that, and
so Dresden does accept the money, and then the two of them wander off, and Dresden decides that he's going to call Murphy to ask about Lloyd's slate and ask Billy to call the hospital, ask him to call the hospital morgues in search of Lily.
Yeah, which is kind of, and so Billy's like, so you think she's dead? And he's like, I think it'd be simpler if she was. And I'm like, that's horrible, but I get what you're saying, like, for sure, if you could just turn her up and that's it, right? And then this is another good point, right? And he's like, calling morgues, like there must be like a gajillion of them. I thought I could be more useful. Here's like, well, welcome to the glamorous world of private investigation. You want to help, like again, it's just another nice moment where I'm like, it's not all about going and visiting like fairy princesses and things, okay? Sometimes you gotta do the legwork. Exactly. And sometimes it's sitting your ass on the phone for 4 hours and calling morgues to see if they have some green-haired Jane Doe, And again, it's just a little reality check for Billy there too, that he's like, okay, fine, it's not all about running around and getting to be Wolf Boy. And, it's like, and again, just that, like, it's a great turn her up, but not like, I think it just sort of makes, a little twinge for Billy there to kind of understand this is just sort of a regular part of the world stuff, like.
Being an adult sucks, bro.
But yeah, right?
Yeah, so Billy leaves and Dresden approaches his car. And a bloody Elaine falls out of it.
Bloody
very
Elaine.
Injured and asking for help. And
Ooh, she's so powerful and cool.
Well, who's bleeding out in the parking lot now, bitch?
Bloody Elaine.
She was always better than you. She always had more control than you. So, he finds, and Harry, I'm here, Elaine. Fade to black.
Thank you so much to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us keep doing what we're doing. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at patreon.com/freeflowrambling.
Chapter 17. Dresden brings Elaine to the summer court to help with her injuries. Dresden eventually realizes he's in the presence of Aurora, the summer lady, and asks her to help Elaine. Aurora tells Dresden he is vulnerable to the influence of Winter and asks him not to help Winter in exchange for Aurora taking away his pain. Dresden declines and tells her he will find the killer before the war between Summer and Winter starts in 2 days' time.
So poor Elaine. So first and I get, he's had a pretty rough night. There's all these attacks going on and stuff like that. And he just like jerks open the car door and like dumps her out. So this poor battered, bleeding Elaine that has come for help just get like dumped on her ass. And he's like, oh shit. So he like lays her out on the parking lot to assess her injuries, realizes this is bad. This is more than I can deal with. And I have mixed thoughts here because he's like, I would need both hands to put pressure on the wounds. And then she's got all these other minor. But then he's like, well, I can't do that, so I'm just not going to do anything at all. It's like, I get you can't like drive and have hands on, but you're just like, I'm just going to stuff her back in the car and hope for the best. But I'm just like, this poor girl is just getting like, dump you out, lay you out, poke a breath. Nope, this is going to work. I'm going to fold you back up, shove you back in the beetle. Like, sorry, I can't keep any pressure on your wound, so just bleed out as slowly as possible until I get you somewhere, like, doesn't take off his shirt and like tie it around, try and make like some kind of pressure bandage. And it's just kind of, I'm like, I get
It's a bit of a shock, though.
I get the shock.
He's not expecting to see Elaine in his car
and
at all.
I'm not saying I would do any better in that situation. I mean, I've never been faced with anything that severe.
Flight or freeze. He's a little bit on the freeze part.
Yeah, but it's
I was going to say, I've definitely got a cell phone, so I would definitely just be able to call them to me, right?
Yes, millennial.
And not move them all around the place. And understanding he doesn't have that option, it's like, okay, fine.
Yes.
But yes, typically, like, First aid training 101. Don't move the body when they're bleeding out all over the place.
There's that, especially if you don't know if there's that spinal wound, and she does have this big, like the big laceration in her back and everything. And
her arms are laced open. That's disgusting, first of all. Like, that would be enough for me to be like, okay, you're on your own, bye-bye.
Well, yeah.
I'll send paramedics down the corner.
I don't know if you're envisioning that quite. Yeah, it's just some cuts along it. I don't know that they're necessarily...
It says laced open. That sounds bad.
Well, yeah, but
even lacerated seems less bad than laced open. Like,
I don't know. I mean, she's definitely, because I'm thinking of more like defensive wounds. I'm saying she's definitely got a bunch, but I don't know if it's quite as bad as what you're envisioning. I feel like... I have a slightly not good. But
I'm imagining like ballerina ribbons.
yeah, see, no. See, yeah, no, I don't think it was. Yeah, it's not flayed. It's just lace. So yes, I literally think it just means she's got a few
Sure.
cuts and things.
Either way, he wants to take her to the
Regardless.
hospital, and she is like, absolutely not. How dare you? What a horrible idea.
Let's just take you to a vet instead.
Not. Yes, but yes, as weak as she is and as out of it as she is, as soon as he says, "Don't worry, I'm taking you to the hospital," she's like, "No, they'll find me there, not the hospital." I think you've influenced me. I don't know why I'm suddenly making Elaine out to sound.
She sucks. And I'm happy she's about to die.
No speaking ill of the dead.
Not dead yet.
Dead yet.
You suck, Elaine.
So yeah, so she says, and he's like, "The summer court, what the fuck, you need a hospital." And I'm like, again, I get it, Harry, but at the same time, in the last book, Leah gave you like a little kiss on the forehead and cured like a massive gash to the point where it looked like months long healed, and the doctor was like, "Get out of here, you faking faker." So I'm like,
just about to say, I was like, if this was Harry bleeding on the pavement right now, he'd have already called up 18 people to make a deal with. And Elaine's just like, let me crawl into this beetle and die here.
"Let me take you for some stitches and some staples." I know these guys, I don't know, maybe at this point, you know, I mean, Harry does, I'm pretty sure, like, in Grave Peril, when he shows up, doesn't he say he has, like, a medical file that's, like, the size of a phone book or something like that, you know? So maybe at this point, he's still all for the Western medicine, and just, okay, a couple stitches will... I'm like, oh my
all his
god,
bills are
I
going.
just thought of the Weasleys. What are stitches? It sounds like...
That gold nugget that he got went straight to the hospital.
Straight up, yeah. That's why he was
here's
still broke after
everything I owe you.
Bigfoot.
This'll just
American
about
medical bills.
Yeah.
Taking gold nuggets left and right.
A whole lot of it just...
That makes sense.
That, yeah, fair. But he's all like, "You're joking, right?" Like, and I'm like, okay, I get it, but that's who she's working for too, and she's went and hid out there for, like, why she's working for them is because she's spent the last 10 years in sanctuary there, so why do you assume she's kidding when she's like, "Take me to the summer court"? It's like, seems pretty logical to me, Harry, from her point of view.
So Dresden does take Elaine to the Rothschild Hotel, and Elodie takes over and begins to lead Dresden again, after bumping into the glass first. It's very cute. Bonk.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh,
This way.
Yeah, yeah.
So she takes them to an unlit breezeway and then leaves. Boop. Her job here is done. Bye.
Yeah, she's like, "I just had to guide you to the court." Yeah. He's like, "More fairies, keen." And then he's like, yeah. So he's like, "Okay, obviously I'll skip the driveway. I don't think it's there." She is at the back. And then he's like, "I don't really know what I'm looking for. Maybe like just a nice big sign that says summer court here." It's like, sadly, no. But yes, then Elodie is like, "Hello, that's why I'm here." But yes, I think it's very cute that she's been hiding in his hair since, like, the tunnels.
I totally forgot about her.
Yeah, so did Harry, apparently. And I was like, all this other stuff, getting mugged with apologies and bodies falling out of his car. He's like, "Oh, yeah, right." So yes, Elodie very kindly is right here. This is where you want to go. So yeah, he's got to carry her up, and he's very nice about it. But, you know, I'm like, as you know, Elaine is like slim, but she's got a lot of muscle, so she's really not light.
Well, somebody is in a dead weight. They're like extra heavy.
Yeah, but yeah, I like how he's like, "I'm not calling her fat, people, just so you know. She's just muscular." And I'm not a wimp.
I'm not weak.
She's
It's
just
really how I
muscular.
took it. Yeah. That's how I took it more.
Yes. Either way, it's just this is all it is. So he's frantically figuring out how to, you know, he wants to get his amulet so he can, you know, light up the place and see what he's doing, and bing, the doors swing open and there's some girl. "Oh my god, Ella, quick, let's go." So she jumps back in the elevator with him, and yeah, again, Harry speaking for all of us there. He's like, so it just has like a key to get up to like the penthouse or whatever. And he's like, "I wish it had like a bank of buttons so I could just like senselessly like press the button to speed it up." You know, I was like, who has ever done that, Harry? Come on, we all know that doesn't work.
We know the door closed thing doesn't work either. Why do they even put that button there?
Right. I have had it work occasionally, but it's one of those things where it's never going to work when you want it. If you see that like coworker or something that, or like weird neighbor that you don't want to, when you then it never does, you know. It's like when you mean to hit like the door open button to hold it open for like the lady with the baby stroller, that's when you like slam it shut in her face. You're like, "I'm sorry, I was trying to keep it open, sorry, wrong button."
As someone who's had a job that has required elevators for 3 years now, the first thing I do when I get in an elevator is press my floor, and then I press the closed door buttons, and I don't have problems like you guys do. You're just standing around waiting 5 minutes before you press the close door button. Yeah, it does take a time, but the first thing you do when you get in the elevator is start pressing that button. It only takes once and it goes.
I've never had luck with that one. It just never does it for me.
You just get all the dead elevators that,
Apparently, because
like walk signals that never, like, the walk button that never actually changes when you need to. But anyways, but yeah, so they have kind of a little thing here, and she's like, what happened? And he's like, I have no idea, I just found her. And she's like, oh man, she's like, you're with Winter. And he's like, how did you know? And she's like, oh, it just shows. And again, it's like Toot, where he's like, I can smell her all over you. He's like, is there a deodorant? So apparently, this person too, she can just automatically pick up that he's like with Winter. And she's like, but I don't get it. Like, are you sure you want to be here? And he's like, abso-fucking-lutely not, but she needs help, and she wanted to come here, so I'm not leaving until...
Yeah, the courts really piss all over their property, don't they? Like, you're mine!
They're very possessive. It's really, red flag, people don't date fairies. But yeah, it's just all very... And he's just sitting there going, like back and arms and everything are starting to strain. So he's kind of all preoccupied with all this, and...
So the elevator does finally open... Yay. And it opens up to this rooftop jungle-like garden. And the woman leads Dresden through it. She leads them into an area with a gnarled tree throne and a few people around it, including a centaur blacksmith. Cool. Mm-hmm. Really paints a picture.
Mm-hmm. No. He forges. The painter's on the other side.
That's good.
Thank you. They also have a pool. There was like this weird, freaky pool, maybe water, maybe not water, in the underground hotel in the Winter Court. And now up on the Borneo portal rooftop
fairies
thing. There's just another square pool in the middle there, not doing anything, perfectly still and glassy, and
it's reflecting the moon.
It's reflecting the moon. Okay, well, fine, yes, but yeah. So again, Maeve, I guess this is a little bit like the original cover art for the book too, right? But like Maeve had her big like icy snowflake throne in this pool, and here she's got like a pool and a big living tree throne, and which is funny because he makes a point of it, but really, you don't really come back to that. So I don't know. I guess it was just cool. Maybe it was a good idea.
Ladies in their thrones. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it was exactly. It was just setting that scene,
the kind of between the two courts.
Yeah.
And the not so differences. So there's like people like randomly scattered around, or like people.
Yes.
And
so there's people,
like,
and there's fairy people.
Yeah. And, they're all just having a day. It's like a nice, fun day in Summer Tower.
Which is funny because, again, we've already established that we're getting into night now or whatever, right? Like,
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because she said she was out to go get more clay. And I'm like, at this time of night, you were going to go buy more clay? So how late is it?
Right, exactly. But at the same time, Chicago, big city.
All sorts of clay dealers.
24-hour Walmart?
This is, right.
Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, depending on, his
fucking Canadians. Is there a 24-hour Walmart in America?
Most of
Do
them.
they have those? Oh, really?
Yeah. And
there's lots more late night stuff. That's the one thing I missed when I moved back to Canada. I was like, everything is freaking closed at 9 o'clock.
10 p.m. in Canada, everything is done.
Yeah.
11. Come on, guys. We're not savages. Walmart's open till 11.
All right, you're right.
We briefly had, because a few years back, Walmart started doing, like, for the month of December kind of a thing. They'd go 24 hours.
Yeah. But yeah,
which
just
was
for
cool.
December.
But, yeah. And then they did briefly move that to permanently some of the locations, because the Deerfoot one by us, because my sister worked there for a while and stuff too, and it actually did go to 24 hours.
It was not long.
For a few months or a year, like I forget how long, and then they decided to do like renovations and stuff like that, so they shut it down, and then it never did, but there was a couple that we had like 2 or 3 around the entire city that had 24 hour, and it was for somebody like me with my most functional from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. kind of, I was like, I would gladly go do my grocery shopping then and not have to do it at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
When I was in the States, I would always do my grocery shopping around midnight.
Yeah.
Because nobody was there. I loved it.
Right. You're quick. You're in and out. You don't have the crowds. You don't have the thing. Like so many reasons to make use of that. So, and again, I have discovered in my, reading travels and that the Walmart supercenters are a magnitude above Canadian Walmart supercenters. Like a supercenter here means you have the grocery section and like a nail salon and like, usually like, I don't know, like a travel place or like a optometrist. Whereas like, yeah, there they have like entire, like Zellers and stuff that we used to have here had like cafes and cafeterias in them.
But little dingy things.
Yeah, but apparently that's still a thing in like the States, Walmarts and stuff like that. They have like, I mean, we do have a few as we'll find out here shortly, about the little hole in the wall things and stuff like that. But plus they have so much more, right? Like you have all like your firearms and your booze and your all. So they probably
the liquor store. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
liquor sections.
which is
we don't have that in
another.
Canada yet.
No, it's all
It's
separate.
really quite literally the one-stop shop.
Yeah, there it is. So on guess their like art supply stuff is better than like the 6 cans of Play-Doh or like the pack of Play-Doh and like the one other kind of plasticine that you can buy up here.
I guess when you have like 100 times the population.
Yeah, when there's like 8 million people in that one city, so, and for all...
Is there really 8 million people in Chicago?
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Is it really?
I will
Chicago has a third of the population of Canada
Yeah.
in one city.
The population of Canada, it can't be that small.
Like 30 million or something.
Oh my god.
30 to 34 million.
We're all Googling now.
We are all... So you got Canada, I got Chicago.
I know we're the same as California.
Oh, okay, no, I am wrong. As of 2020, there was only like
the hell, man?
2.7 million people.
Okay.
38, yeah, nice. 38.01 million for 2020.
There's 39.3 in California.
I was gonna say maybe it's Chicago, or I mean not Chicago, maybe it's like New York or something that has. I just feel like recently.
American city with the biggest population.
Okay, yeah, New York has like 8 million people, which is funny because it's got to be even smaller than Chicago.
Chicago's third on the list, though.
Yeah, I knew they were pretty big.
Our city is 1.6 million.
Yeah, I knew we were over a million. So yeah, so we're literally like half the size.
Still, we're
of-
only 50% of Chicago.
Yeah,
though. That's not bad.
We're like half the size of Chicago, so it's not. But yeah, it's New York has over 8 million people. My bad.
Looking at this, New York's almost at 9.
In such a small area.
I guess this.
That's why people are so angry there.
Right? It's all up. So there we go. So yes, I know. I sort of, part of me is the same way. Part of me is like, where the fuck are you going to get clay? And part of me is like, Chicago,
America.
you know what? Yeah, it's probably
You can get
is
a gun
thing.
anywhere. You can probably get clay
You
anywhere.
know, plus, I guess really it's like fairies. I don't know. Maybe she's popping back to the Never Never or some shit. You know, she's like,
I just take it to mean she's a fairy, so she's a fucking liar. You can't buy clay at this time.
but they can't
Instantly
lie.
lie.
So she just has to misconstrue. So yes, so there's people around doing things, and there's fairy people around doing things, and he's all freaking out, and he's like, can we just... And first of all, this centaur guy is massive. He's like a freaking Clydesdale, and huge, and comes like barreling down. He's fucking Winter, like, what the fuck are you... He's like, whoa,
Yes.
I'm just, I got... And he's like, yeah, you got our emissary's blood all over you, and you're like, oh, I'm just here to visit, you know, and...
Korik is not pleased.
No, and especially like he's got his arms full of this...
Why would I
half
fucking
dead-
bring her here? Why?
Well, but yeah, he's like really not in a position to defend himself. And I'm like, you got this fucking massive horse thing barreling down on you. I'm like, yeah, that would definitely check off the intimidation factor there.
Well, and that it does set up the tension that's between the two courts right now.
And yes, exactly.
It's not
You-
even just it's like an instant rage.
Exactly, like you dare
fuck
set
you.
foot here.
Yeah.
Like, why are you, even daring to be anywhere within our vicinity? Exactly. So the other, and it's so funny again when you're listening to this, because especially when you're like listening to before bed and you're half asleep and you just hear him talking about like the she lord, and you're like not like SHE, but like fairy she. And it was like a He-Man thing or something. I just kept hearing like she lord, she lord, she lord. And I was like, what the...
She Lord Talos.
Yes.
He stops the centaur from continuing.
For me, it's just I can only think of that meme where it's like, by Talos, this can't be happening.
Nope, don't
The
know
Elder
that.
Scrolls thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
It's just a funny meme because
Yeah.
the centaur's all like, Talos, arrogance can't be tolerated.
Talo asks if he asks Dresden if he's him.
Excuse me, sir. Am I me?
It doesn't make sense in my notes, and it doesn't make sense me trying to make sense of my notes.
It does.
I mean,
I got
are you Harry Dresden?
Yes. Yes. Are you?
If not, he's going to be upset with me when he catches me running around in his underpants.
Right? True story.
Diffuse with humor.
Exactly. And I'm like, yeah, Harry has time to be smart alecky, but he doesn't have time for any of these other guys to not get to the point. He's like, I'm dying here.
It's like he just blurts the stuff out. He doesn't even think about it. It's just like, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I said that.
Instant.
Oh, it's completely, second nature.
But that's why I like it so much when, like, they continue to try and be like, well, then I grant you out. He's like, blah, blah, can you save her life already?
Yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's great, but...
Great, nice to meet you. Hello. Oh, dying woman in my arms right now. Does anybody care?
These are definitely creatures of pomp and circumstance.
Seriously.
Right. So fine. He's like, oh, I'll do what I can, and like, flicks his wrist, and all of a sudden, woo, everything's a buzz. So here, instead of having some naked lady jump out of the pool and get dressed by pixies, now you have the pixies all running around bringing like Band-Aids and Tylenol. It's like, it's not quite as sexy, but same flurry of activity of. So they make her like a little like. Not a bower, but they make her like a little gurney out of like leaves and twigs right away. They just zip, 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 zip.
Right, Talos kind of briefly checks her out, and he's like, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
She's fine for now.
It's funny, too, because like in conversational, Talos sounds a lot like Telus, which is one of our major phone companies up here. So it's just funny. I just keep hearing, Tell us what and did. I'm like, what? Talos. So he does say, he's like, I can help her out, and I can kind of get her stable. And he's like, well, go get the lady, like, no offense. Oh, yeah, because he's like, she'll be fine for a little while. And he's like, yeah, no offense, you guys have weird ideas about time. So can we just move this along? And the clay girl is all like, well, come on, like, come have something to eat while, Talos. And he's like, no, I'm not going anywhere until I'm sure. So Talos is like, okay, fine. And does like, his 2 seconds of healing to be like, okay, well, she's just like in stasis now.
He basically, he stabilizes her. He's like, I can at least make it not get worse. I'm like, well, it was already pretty bad. So like, that doesn't necessarily help.
That doesn't necessarily help. But yeah, but it's all like, she's not getting better. She's not getting worse. Like, whatever. She's just kind of, I'm like, well, why did you could have just done that kind of right from the start then too, instead of waiting around with all this other stuff, like while Harry's talking to you. But again, I do kind of like the line where he's like, I can't hurry the sunrise nor the lady. I'm like, yeah, yeah, women in general, probably most of you, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the girl again invites Dresden to eat. Otherwise, they'd be considered poor hosts.
Yeah.
So,
and she does make sure to promise him that it's no funky stuff.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, just real food.
Here's a Coke, chips, and a turkey sub. And Dresden is tickled pink.
Marry me.
Sorry, famishly eats.
Yeah, so that is good. And so he notices. So he starts taking a look around the garden and notices the little clay bust that she's working on and some marble statues and some paintings. He's like, hey, yo, is that Lily? And she's like, oh, you know her? And he's like, well, I know of her. I just got asked to like find her. And even that, I was like, only in your, like, again, this is just you still feeling guilty about it, because you're like, well, technically I was, like, paid to, but she doesn't, like, irrelevant, that's beside the point, like, you were asked to go find her. So she kind of questions again about Elaine and what happened, and he's like, no idea, like, I literally just found her, and she wanted to come here. And she's like, I don't get it, like, you're enemies, like, you're working for Winter, why would you? And he's like, because I don't really give a shit, like, I'm, like, yeah, they hired me for this gig kind of a thing, but I'm not, like, pro-Winter, and, I'm definitely going to make sure that Elaine, as a woman, as a mortal, he doesn't necessarily know if the person he's talking to, that they know each other, but, we know, like, he's got, but, again, just from an outside view of whether Harry knows this woman or not, it's just like, this woman is dying, I'm not going to just leave her on the side of the road somewhere, like, it doesn't matter that she's working for Summer, it's like, mortal, same team, kind of like, like you're saying with the council or whatever, as long as you're mortal, we're team mortal, kind of a thing, right? And she's kind of surprised by this, because she's like, like Mab usually hires, like, colder, harsher people to be for, I'm surprised that you have a speck of human decency in you, is basically what she's saying, and he's like,
well, and this is where he basically realizes that she is the Summer Lady, because, like,
yeah.
Oh, you would know
like,
this
because fuck.
You're Aurora.
But honestly, he figures it out fairly quick.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, props to you. Like, it wasn't like he was here all day or whatever like that. Like,
I always felt he was a bit slow on the uptake, but that could be the privilege of reader's perspective.
I don't know. Listening to it on audiobook a few days ago, to me it seemed like it took forever, but then reading it on the page, I was like, oh no, he figures it out on like the 3rd page. Like, that's fine. Like,
yeah, see, I'm just thinking back to when I was...
See, when I was reading it, I didn't put together until he said it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so maybe that was because I remember going through the first time and being like, oh, well, fuck, this is going to be... as soon as there's like a nondescript fairy and like, I'm like, oh, this is totally going to end up being You know,
I don't read ahead.
I don't.
I just take the book as
I wasn't reading it, but
I know, but
but I was gonna say that's what I sort of mean by like the reader privilege is that again you don't get introduced to a lot of completely no-name background characters, right? Like, again, when you're watching a program, you can have the entire state of New York in the background scene, and you know they're just background because they're not in the forefront. Whereas in a book, because you have to mention everybody, again, it's rare anybody gets mentioned that's not going to be, right? So I think I kind of had that inkling from the beginning that I was like, oh, it's going to, especially when she's just like, oh, it's fine, the lady will be here, come on. I'm like, oh. So yeah, he's like, fuckers. But yes, granted, Dresden was a little distracted with a lot going on here and worried about her.
Yeah, upon his realization, Aurora sort of does this transformation thing and kind of resembles Maeve in appearance.
Yeah.
Sailor Moon, magical girl transformation.
Yeah, just stops kind of looking like the girl next door and starts looking like... Which, again, make up your fucking mind, Butcher. Because he doesn't say anything about Mab being weird until he goes to the funeral and is like, nobody's standing out. But Mab looked weird and Grum looked weird. I'm like, well, you didn't really say that about that. And now you've been talking to this chick for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I have no idea how long this exchange is supposed to.
He's a little concerned his friend is dying.
Well, again, right? But it was like all of a sudden she, you know what I mean? So it was like, well, she seemed to have blended in well enough. I mean, he never specifically said she was mortal or she was fairy. He may have thought she was some kind of fae. But you know what I mean? It's just like you kind of keep going back and forth where like all these people that you're suddenly talking to that you don't realize are fairies until they suddenly expose themselves as fairies. But you're like, fairies don't really blend in. You can always tell a fairy. I'm like... Dude.
If you're looking for them, I guess.
Continuity's for wusses.
It's not.
He's always writing this in the aftermath, right? He has to look back on his memories and be like, all right, what?
Yeah. Unreliable error. They're so hard to figure out. Oh my god, I totally knew that was you.
But this is why it gets so, like, you know, like, fairy is fairy is fairy. Forget about summer and winter, because he's all like, okay, cool, stop playing games, go help Elaine. And she's like, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to you first. See how I feel about you. Then we'll see if and it's like, fairies are just crazy bitches no matter what side of the aisle they're on.
Pretty much.
This is really interesting dialogue that they have right there going on, because she's like, he's like, stop playing games. She's like, you think it's a game? He's like, no.
Yeah,
like,
I know, damn.
Well, it is a game. Haha.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, okay.
Because that's totally how you expect, like, you think this is a game? He's like, I know damn well it's not. And you're like, yeah, we get this is important. We get the stakes. And she's like, well, you're wrong. It is a game. We're like, what the fuck? What?
So Aurora is suspicious of why Elaine was hurt and is cautious to help because she might be playing into Winter's hands by helping.
Yeah, maybe this is all part of the grand plan. Maybe this is a little... You know that I know what you know. You want me to
in my opinion there. Like,
yeah, big time, right? And he's like, I don't fucking care, just help. And she's like, okay, well, I do believe you, but I don't trust, you know, like, again, I believe that, sure, you want me to help her make her better, but I still can't trust that because you might not realize, you know, the cat's paw you're being, that, you know, Mab could still be manipulating all of this or whatever. So even though you genuinely think you're just here to help her out.
And she makes a lot of good points, too, like that Dresden he's basically a mercenary. He's had dealings with demons in the past. He's traded himself to Leah for power, and he's even killed people. Like,
yeah.
Just like all of that.
And
it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
and he's trying to excuse it. She's like, you've summoned up demons. He's like, just nickel and dime stuff. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't inhale. Like, it was just kids dying out. He's like, you know? And then, yeah, and she just kind of keeps stacking it up. She's like, well, you've also done this, and you also done this, and you also done this. And then he's like, oh, fuck, yeah, not a lot I can say to that, right?
Yeah.
So...
And you get sort of like this predetermined sort of fate overtone or undertone in this conversation. Like, from the beginning, you have been meant to be a destroyer, a killer. Do you know the original purpose of a godparent, Mr. Dresden? Yeah, I said. I felt tired. A godparent is chosen to ensure that a child has had religious and moral guidance and teaching. Indeed, she said. And your godmother, your teacher and guide, is the most vicious creature of Mab's court. More than Maeve's equal, second in strength to only Mab herself.
Yeah.
Insane line right then.
Insane
line. Because, like, yeah, like, once you've gone off and read the books a million times and you're not analyzing and doing a podcast like this, you don't always think of stuff. But it was this most recent reading when I was just like, do you know what a godparent's for? And I was just like, Oh shit, that's a good fucking point, actually. That's a real good point you're making.
It was not just a sort of empty title that it is a lot of times now, you know. It's like, yeah, no, it had specific purpose and meaning, and
that Harry's mother and Leo would have both been absolutely aware of.
Well, yeah, right? Like, again, you have to appoint some. You don't really just get to be, I'm your godparent now, you know, like, exactly. But yeah, they're supposed to be there. So if you are unable or unwilling to fulfill that duty, your godparents are supposed to make sure that you are still brought up.
Yeah, it sounds like we're starting to get a little of this glimmer that Dresden has really been molded into the person that he is, specifically by these courts already.
Yeah, well, all these hints that he had, you know, like you say, like in book 2 when he's talking to Chauncey, and he's like, oh yeah, I totally knew your parents. And he's like, wait, what? And he's like, oh, you didn't know about, you know, like, you know, again, all these hints about what his mother did and who she knew and what she was connected to and when he was born and all this kind of, you know what I mean?
Well, even up to the most recent full novel, Battleground, you've still got everyone just being like, hee hee, you're not ready to know yet. It's just book after book after book is like a little line, a little throw, here's but
it's just starting to be more obvious. They're starting to more specifically acknowledge it and be like, we're just not, whereas here it's all these little teasers and stuff, right? So, yeah, it does start making you wonder, like, oh, again, is this just like, I don't know, you know, again, like people are like, oh, you have your mother's eyes. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that my whole life. Big deal. What does it mean? Blah, 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 blah. You know, like all of us have.
No, you really stole her eyes out of her skull.
No, literally. Did you not realize that when your mother died, they implanted? Yeah, you know, exactly, right? He's like, wait, what? So yeah, but I love, and again, I do enjoy Marshall's reading of this, right? And he's like, so he said, we get this great line about how vicious and everything Leah is. And he's like, teacher, guide. He's like, is that what you think she is? And she's like, isn't she? And he's like, Leah barely noticed me, except when she thought she could get something from me. I spat. The rest of the time, she couldn't care less. The only thing she taught me was that if I didn't want to get walked on, I had to be smarter than her, stronger than her, and willing to do something about it. And Aurora turned her lovely face fully towards me and regarded me with deep, quiet eyes. Yes. It's like, oh, boom.
Monsters are born of pain and grief and loss and anger. Your heart is full of them.
Yeah, because like what you just said to try and defend it is exactly. She taught you had to be smarter and meaner and willing to use it. Boom, that's Winter. And he's like, oh,
he is
fuck me.
Super
like,
manipulated.
Right.
It's less that he was an adolescent making stupid choices, but he was actually put into these specific places on purpose.
Yeah, certainly didn't help. They certainly took advantage of him being young and stupid. And like you say, you know, it's not his fault. He didn't have, you know, the knowledge and experience then. But yeah, like you say, it's like becoming less and less that it was just like, oh, hey, this is cool. Maybe you wanna, oh, okay, sure. And it was like, Harry, do you need some power? Do you want some power? You know, you could totally fix this if hey, you know, it'd be cool, Leah. Can I get some power?
But of course, it makes it even scarier when you see that, like, everything that Harry is now is by design. That was on purpose. And you're like, ooh.
Other than those darn pesky moral parts of him, they can't seem to stomp out
They
of
try,
him.
sure. But still, I mean, to be fair, like, there is a whole part of, like, you know, like,
chivalry
who we love and we know as Harry is, like, this, like, he is very smart and quick-witted, and he thinks, and he's this, and he's that, and then, of course, you know, you've got to deal with the whole anger problem and everything, too. But it's like, ooh, someone wants you to be that way? I don't like that.
Yeah, he is
when it was you wanting to be that way, it was great. When you're someone else's weapon, very scary.
It's exactly right. And it really does, like, it takes the wind out of his sails right there in that moment, too, when the kind of flicks, you know, light bulb comes on. I've realized
that almost makes me think of, like, you know, the Black Widow, you know, whereas like the rest of the Avengers were kind of like, you know what, like, I chose to build the suit, or I chose to participate in this government testing, or it's like, you know, for the most part they've all got their sad backstory about like, oh, nothing went the way we thought it was going to be. But Natasha was fully like kidnapped as a child, raised to be a warrior, a sleeper agent, an assassin, fully mind fucked or whatever like that, and then
no choice and
thrown out into the world, and was just like, okay, yeah, you are super cool and badass until I say a word, and then you're my fucking weapon, you know? It's just like, yeah, Harry, you're super cool and all, but what does that mean for whoever's at the top of all this?
Exactly. What is that? Yeah, we're all just waiting for the code word, right?
Yeah. And the nice thing is that, you know, throughout all of this, you know, fairies can't lie.
and this is the other thing, because he says this too, because he's like, after he discovers it's her, and he's like, oh crap, he's like, this food really was just food, right? And she's like, no, for sure, that definitely was. And he's like, well, I knew she couldn't lie to me, so I went on eating. And I'm like, did you not just, like, again, this is like the fairies can blend in, and I didn't know it was a fairy, because literally, like, 2 chapters ago with Billy. You know, they're not going to be offering you like an obvious like gift wrap pack. They're going to say things, do things. It's not right. And I'm like, you've been warned all along, Bob, and like whatever else, whatever we've had of fairies is all like they can manipulate you into. You know,
Do
they're not
trust.
They're not necessarily going to be straight up. Hey, do you want to let me control your life or what? You know, do you want to play the trumpet until you pass out and die? You know, but it's like they cannot lie, so they have to do everything else to work around that to be. I don't want to keep saying the word manipulate or manipulative, but you know, but exactly to steer you down or to get you to make assumptions, or you know what I mean. So I was like, why do you keep blindly relying on this fairies can't lie thing as much as you do? And especially when you literally in this conversation as well, you're just like, well, Leah just told me I had to, you know, to get out of what I wanted, I had to be smarter, and you know, I'm like, you know, that's what they do. That's entirely their point.
Maybe this is one of those
raison d'etre.
Maybe this is like one of those things, like with Lydia, when we're like, you just said that no one's gonna believe her, and now you're actively not believing her.
Yeah,
He's
right?
like, fairies can manipulate, and then he actually gets manipulated, and we're all just supposed to be like, you know, as the reader, you know that he's being dumb, but as the character, you're just like, okay, have fun with that.
Is that like blinded to your own flaws kind of a thing, you know?
Oh, Harry definitely.
Well, okay, but you know what I mean, where you're just like, I don't understand people that would do, and you're like the thing you do
This
all the
dumb
time.
motherfucker doesn't know how to drive. Forget all the dents on my car. That was not my fault.
Yeah, none of those belong to you. Exactly. Like, you know what I mean? Where he's like, well, I'm not going to get taken in because I know fairies are manipulative. You really have to watch your back, though, Billy. But yeah, and I've noticed with this podcast, and it's funny when I listen to things and I'll like pick up little like quote unquote mistakes and I'll be like, that's not out. And then I listen back to our episodes and I realize how often I like mix metaphors, and I'm like, why did I say that? What? So apologies all out there to anybody I was ever like, don't you know what that phrase is, or you said that wrong, or don't you have editing? Because I'm like, oh yeah, it's just when you're in the moment, you're just going, and you just, so it's like, especially in the last one, I think I picked up like 2 or 3.
I'd edit it out, but you talk too fast.
Well, some of that as well, right? But it's, yeah, things where it's like, there's only so much you can edit because I literally put like 2 completely, and it was just funny because I've called Jess out for doing that as well, you know, but anyways,
Yeah, so Aurora continues by telling Harry that he's really vulnerable to Mab as a result of all this stuff that's going on. She goes on to ask him to let her help him. Or we see this moment of her sort of, see, she touches his chest. Emotions welled up like a riotous rainbow. Scarlet rage, indigo fear, pale blue sadness, aching yellow loneliness, putrid green guilt. The tide flooded through me, coursed over me like a bolt of lightning, searing and painful and beautiful all at once. What a wonderful statement that was. Like, just using all
beautiful word imagery there.
Just like a painting. That's
Yes.
brilliant. I loved it.
And like all the sort of colors we're familiar with, but in a little bit of a different way of, you know what I mean? Not just like red anger, you know, but like scarlet rage and things like that, right? It was just like a nice, familiar, but kind of unique twist on, very evocative. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even, you know, just before this, where she's like, you know, I can't remember if she asked him or not, but goes, you know, to like touch him. And even that, he's like, even that was just really nice. Like, you know, since Susan left, he's like, other than the occasional assault, I haven't been you know, it's like,
ouch.
Yeah, right? Like, literally, it's like the only time you get let little, and I mean, we go on and on about this in society as a whole, kind of a thing about how important, you know, much as we all like to be loners, much as some of us are like, you don't touch me, really, human beings are programmed and wired to want that human, right?
Or pet creatures.
That baby being born and immediately laying on, you know, a mother's chest or stomach, and how, you know, all of this kind of stuff, right? And again, I can absolutely 100% say, you know, somebody that like strokes your hair or holds your hand, I'm like, that can be just a huge thing in a moment if it's got that genuine.
It creates wonderful endorphins.
And yeah, this is Harry. It's like the most I've been touched is just when people beat up on me. You know, like, right. Not quite the same. So literally, you're just like, and
so not only does she touch him, but she gives like this relief for him.
Yeah, and something else that Butcher has brought up and will bring up in other books, he often talks about just like the absence of pain being blissful and cathartic, and yeah, and I'm like, it's kind of funny because I'm like, well, on the one hand, I'm like, obviously the absence of pain that's why we don't like pain. As soon as it goes away, we feel better. But I do sort of get the way he's saying too, that without even necessarily feeling better or like fixing or curing, but like you say, just not feeling that pain for a minute, just having it stop is like its own kind of relief above that, kind of a thing. I'm like, it's kind of contradictory, but I also kind of get what you're saying with it. And, but yeah, so this is a very big moment for him. And he's like, 'cause she's like, oh, you're, like the two people that came up here tonight, Elaine is not the most grievously wounded. He's like, what are you talking about? I got a couple bumps and bruises. And then she's like, no, dear sweetie, I mean this. And he's like, oh, fuck. Right. And again, yeah, all that emotional and mental.
Yeah. So he comes to and like laying in her lap, and this was only a very brief reprieve from his pain, because it starts to immediately flow back into him.
Yeah, as soon as he
here's a touch of what I can do for you. Just a little taster.
First one's free.
It's tempting, but of course, Harry being Harry. The dominoes are already stacked up. Like, if he stops here, it's not just one thing he doesn't do. It's going to be like 14 things that he hasn't done.
Yeah.
It'll fall back on, right? Because it's not just keeping a word with Mab. It's also then keeping his word to the council, and also then keeping his war with the Red. And then also, it's...
Well, and that's it. He puts it very succinctly here. He's like, oh, man, like, I could just let go of all this shit. But he immediately knows the consequences are, but if I don't solve this problem, the wizards don't get the thing, they're going to buy, like, I'm a dead man. Like, no matter which way
you
he's
stay in this utopia as long as you want, but the second you walk outside, that.
Yeah, meanwhile, everybody else is going to suffer and pay the consequences, because as long as the vampires don't have him, it's not like they're going to be like, well, we don't know where Harry went, and they're just going to be like, okay, no problem, we'll chill till he gets back, then we'll start the war back up again. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, all those other wizards and people on the fringe are just going to continue getting slaughtered and wiped out, and he's like, I can't, like, sure.
I really like that at this point that Aurora does try to make a bargain with him. It shows that both courts have the exact same MO, even though they do it in different ways.
Completely different ways.
She's very subtle about her manipulations to try to make this a deal with him by giving him this
that just
relief.
Shows how much more open to summer they are. Even like we us three right here have these kind of like preconceived ideas that, summer's a lot better. Like, it would be great if we were in the middle of global warming every day. That sounds awesome, but it's like, well, no, actually, like, really think about it. Like, both sides fucking suck. Both sides are bad.
Very much the way Toot puts it, right, is the way we all sort of envision it when you hear them called the summer and winter court, that the ones that do mostly good things go to summer, the ones that do mostly bad things go to winter, right? And we're like, of course, that makes sense, right? Summer is beautiful and warm, and everybody loves summer, and winter is harsh and cold, and everybody hates winter. But yes, they are, once again, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Very much. And thank you for throwing in stacking the dice and giving me an example the dominoes. The dominoes are already stacked. It's like, I don't know, dominoes usually fall, the cards are stacked, but thank you for just giving me that example I did not have 5 minutes ago. That I notice every time you do it, but never hear myself do until I'm listening back to an episode and going, what the fuck is coming out of your mouth, child? So
Aurora tells Dresden he's honorable, if not misguided, and she does finally agree to help Elaine. But first wants information from Dresden. She asks him what Mab has already told him of Ronald's death. Mm-hmm. And he replies that it's only of the death and the loss of the mantle of the power, and that the killer needs to be found, but no reasons of why.
Yep. And she's like, well, that Summer readies to go to war. And he's like, oh, so that's like an actual, like, that's been confirmed, He's like, it's not just a possibility, it's real. And she's like, I know of no other kind. I'm like, okay, yes, fine, fair. But yeah, right. He's like, it's suddenly gone on from, not that this might, but like, yeah, they're starting to, like, they are starting to stack the dominoes.
Not only is the war a definite, but it's going to happen in 2 days' time at the midsummer.
Summer solstice,
At midsummer, sorry, at summer solstice.
Saint whatever, yeah.
Basically, the summer solstice is coming, and that's the last time Summer will ever have any sort of power if they don't, because it's not just that Ronald Rule's power he got killed. It's not just they don't have a summer night. It's that the power that the summer night possessed did not come back to them, so they can't even elect a new summer night. So, if they've got any chance of ever holding up their own court against winter, it's going to have to be during the summer solstice, because in 1 year, they'll be so weak in comparison. Like, winter will have taken them out by the time the winter solstice comes around before then.
It is now.
There won't be another summer solstice.
But yeah, exactly. That's exactly, how she says it. Like, we're at the height of our power right now, and as of that longest day of summer, you now start getting into less daylight.
Every day after that is winter.
So they're like, every day leads up to the longest night, and then immediately then winter starts weakening and you start moving back into...
But winter will not start weakening.
But they won't. But exactly, it's like if they move into their seat of power while having a chance to have stolen, because again, they're like, who else would have it? Like, obviously, summer's not going to steal their own power. It's theirs. They have it. So nobody else in the world really needs it or can use it. So who but winter would steal it? You know what I mean? So yeah, they're like, they are going to exactly rise. They're going to upset that balance and fuck everything over.
So Aurora does ask Dresden to promise her to not help Winter, just to stop them. And Dresden, he tells her that he won't promise, but he does say that he will find the killer before midsummer.
Yeah. And it's like in his words, he's like, because otherwise I'm dead if I'm not. But also it's like, Harry, again, I appreciate it. And as the hero of the book, yes, we know. But it's like, you should know better than to go around saying things like that.
It's like an overpromise and just hope it's not meant to deliver.
Like, this is kind of a big one here. This is not even just finding Lily, who could just be a missing girl in Chicago. You're talking about this major supernatural war that you're still like, nobody's really telling me what's going on. I still don't really understand the purpose. But don't worry, I'll figure it all out before 2 days is up.
The pressure is on.
But I think it's still fair to say that, from from Aurora's conversation from all of this, is that, who is exactly manipulating Harry through all of this, because if it is Mab, then you're extra fucked there, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. So it's like, going forward, it's just like, you still don't know who's pulling the puppet strings on all this.
Yeah, exactly.
And, boys fucked.
Yeah. Good luck, Harry.
This concludes our episode 9.13, Summer's Influence. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.